On December 15th in the year 1925, the New York Americans lose to the Montreal Canadiens 3-1 in the formal opening of New York's Madison Square Garden, which becomes one of the world's most famous sporting venues. The game, played before 17,000 fans, is also the first NHL game played at the arena. Garden is open in a blaze of color, read the headline for a story about the debut in the New York Times. Madison Square Garden's owner, Tex Rickard, a boxing promoter, wanted the arena's first big sports event to be important. He insisted the Americans play host to the Canadiens, the second best team in the league that season. For opening night at the new arena, the lower bowl was filled with men in tuxedos and women in furs and evening gowns. This, according to the NHL website. The evening started at 8:30, wrote the Times in 2015, with the Canadiens and the Americans skating to center ice, accompanied by the 44-piece Governor General's Foot Guard Regimental Band from Ottawa and the 35-piece Drum and Bugle Corps from West Point. They played God Save the King and the Star-Spangled Banner. The Americans, who ceased to exist after 1942, were the first NHL team in New York. They were supplanted by the Rangers, who began play in 1926. Over the years, Madison Square Garden was home of the New York Knicks, Rangers, college basketball, boxing matches, professional wrestling and other sporting events, dog shows, the circus, and more. A new Madison Square Garden opened nearby in 1968. The old structure was demolished. It was December 15th in the year 1945 that General Douglas MacArthur, in his capacity as Supreme Commander of Allied powers in the Pacific, brings an end to Shintoism as Japan's established religion. The Shinto system included the belief that the emperor, in this case Hirohito, was divine. On September 2nd in 1945, aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, MacArthur signed the instrument of Japanese surrender on behalf of the victorious Allies. Before the economic and political reforms the Allies devised for Japan's future could be enacted, however, the country had to be demilitarized. Step 1 in the plan to reform Japan entailed the demobilization of Japan's armed forces and the return of all troops from abroad. Japan had had a long history of its foreign policy being dominated by the military, as evidenced by Prime Minister Fumimaro Konoe's failed attempts to reform his government and being virtually pushed out of power by career Army officer Hideki Tojo. Step 2 was the dismantling of Shintoism as the Japanese national religion. Allied powers believed that serious democratic reforms and a constitutional form of government could not be put into place as long as the Japanese people looked to an emperor as their ultimate authority. Hirohito was forced to renounce his divine status, and his powers were severely limited. He was reduced to little more than a figurehead, and not merely religion, but even compulsory courses on ethics, the power to influence the Japanese population's traditional religious and moral duties, were wrenched from state control as part of a larger decentralization of all power. On December 15th in the year 2001, Italy's Leaning Tower of Pisa reopened after a team of experts spent 11 years and $27 million to fortify the tower without eliminating its famous lean. In the 12th century, construction began on the bell tower for the Cathedral of Pisa, a busy trade center on the Arno River in western Italy, some 50 miles from Florence. While construction was still in progress, the tower's foundation began to sink into the soft, marshy ground, causing it to lean to one side. Its builders tried to compensate for the lean by making the top stories slightly taller on one side, but the extra masonry required only made the tower sink further. By the time it was completed in 1360, modern-day engineers say it was a miracle that it didn't fall down completely. Though the cathedral itself and the adjoining baptistry also leaned slightly, it was the Torre Pendente de Pisa, or Leaning Tower of Pisa, that became the city's most famous tourist attraction. By the 20th century, the 190-foot-high white marble tower leaned a dramatic 15 feet off the perpendicular. In the year before its closing in 1990, 1 million people visited the old tower, climbing its 293 weathered steps to the top and gazing out over the green Campo dei Miracoli, Field of Miracles outside. Fearing it was about to collapse, officials appointed a group of 14 archaeologists, architects, and soil experts to figure out how to take some, but not all, of its famous tilt away. Though an initial attempt in 1994 almost toppled the tower, engineers were eventually able to reduce the lean by between 16 and 17 inches by removing earth from underneath the foundations. When the tower reopened on December 15th in 2001, engineers predicted it would take 300 years to return to its 1990 position. Though entrance to the tower is now limited, hordes of tourists can still be found outside, striking the classic pose, standing next to the tower pretending to hold it up as cameras flash. Historic information involves and documented on this audio file.